You're listening to the Reflective Teacher podcast, and this is episode number 2. Hi, I'm Selena Woodward, and I'm an English and drama teacher, university lecturer, and with edufolios.org, a big-time reflective practitioner. So how can reflective practice help you grow your teaching skills, fall in love with your profession all over again, and help you nail accreditation and teacher registration with less stress and less work? Well, this is the Reflective Teacher podcast. Hi, thank you for joining me again today. It's always a pleasure because I know exactly how busy you are, and you being here listening today just confirms that you are definitely a teacher who loves to learn. And we all know that the best teachers are learners, so well done you. Now, before we begin today's podcast, I'd like you to spend a moment imagining something. I'd like you to imagine that you've just received an email, and the email is here to tell you that you have successfully met all of the requirements of proficiency. You have just proven that you are a brilliant educator who can demonstrate all 37 of the focus areas at Proficient so well that you've been given full registration because you're awesome. Now, some of you have already experienced that, which would have been wonderful, but I know that there are thousands of you out there who are yet to go on that journey. Some of you might only have been teaching for a few weeks and it's not even in your mind right now, but maybe it should be. Now, the process of getting that proficient career stage is slightly different in every state and territory, but it usually requires that you've taught a certain number of days. In some states, that's as low as 100. In others, it's as high as 200. And during those days, you are required to gather some form of evidence. In some states, you have to go through a panel and an interview. You have to create an inquiry project. In others, you just have to provide evidence in other ways. But what's always consistent is that every single state and territory requires that you use the Proficient standards and that you meet them. So this podcast today is all about what the difference is between your graduate standards that you've already nailed and the Proficient ones. Now, as usual, if you head to edufolios.org and today go to /002, you are going to find a guiding document to help you unpick this a little bit further. You're also going to find some links to support you if you want to delve deeper. So that's edufolios.org 002 today. Well, let's get started. Let's make sure that you know the difference between graduate and proficient in the standards. Now, I know that you know there are 7 standards. There are 4 career stages: graduate, proficient, highly accomplished, and lead. And I know that each one of those career stages has their own descriptors inside the focus areas. And those are really the key to this process. You see, the graduate standards, that career stage, is all about you. What impact are your studies or new learning having on your understanding of how you might teach well so you can make a positive impact? You might get a chance to put 1 or 2 things into practice while on prac, but the vast majority of the focus areas at graduate use verbs like demonstrate knowledge or broader knowledge or understanding of something. They focus on that science part of pedagogy, the understanding of how things work, the theories and the frameworks that you've studied and begun to put in practice. In total, of the 37 focus areas at graduate, there are only 11 where you need to show you can apply your knowledge. 11 of the 37. At Proficient, this changes completely. When we get to Proficient, it actually expands. We call it the zone of influence. The zone of influence moves away from just yourself, and it firmly places its focus on your students and what you're doing for them. So it becomes about the impact that you're having on the learners in your classroom. We go from stuff I learned at uni that I think I can understand to stuff I learned at uni that I am applying in my classroom. This is what I've discovered, and this is how it is impacting, hopefully positively, on my students. And what you'll find is the language inside the standards changes too. We go from merely just showing an understanding of something to actually placing that understanding of what we learned into the context of our classroom. Now, I work at a university. I'm a lecturer at Flinders University. And I hear often from students that they find it really difficult to connect what they're learning with what actually happens in the classroom. And I know that some of them will go and find other people's edufolios, proficient, highly accomplished and lead ones, and read. They'll pick a focus area, they'll go away, look on an edufolio and go, oh, that's what that looks like. But there is actually a genuine reason as to why there isn't much focus on how you apply that in a classroom. And that's because at Proficient, that's when you get the time to do that. In your up to 200 days, that's when you get to show that you are able to apply what you learned at uni in a context of your classroom in a way that's going to improve things for your students. Now, how do you demonstrate that in a portfolio? Especially if perhaps you're a relief teacher. I've been having a few phone calls this week with a few of you who are feeling that as a relief teacher, this is really too hard. Well, actually, as a relief teacher, you get plenty of opportunities to work in different contexts. And the challenge for you is probably more about collecting the evidence than it is, and the evidence of impact than it is actually having the opportunity to place your learning in different contexts. Whether you're on contract, you're permanent, you're relieving, at Proficient, you need to be busy gathering artifacts that show how your students are making progress. And we'll talk about impact and what kind of artifacts we might need in a future episode. But it's really important to know that it is the impact on your students that you're looking for. And that will usually involve you grabbing some examples of their work before and after you do something with them. If we look at the verbs that are in the standards and the focus areas, at graduate, often the verbs are things like I can organize, I can set something, I can identify a strategy, I can demonstrate capacity to, I can seek something. It's not actually anything to do with doing very often. When it comes to proficiency, it's more about using, okay? It's using what you're doing to help you and your students, not demonstrating a knowledge of it, but using it. So for example, if we look at Standard 1.1, if we look at the graduate Standard 1.1, the language goes, demonstrate knowledge and understanding of physical, social, and intellectual development and characteristics of students and how these may affect learning. We're demonstrating knowledge and understanding. So we're showing that we've studied something about physical, social, and intellectual development of students and how they might affect learning. You can hear, that's not anything too specific. Now, if we look at it at Proficient, it changes. First of all, we're no longer demonstrating knowledge and understanding. We're now using teaching strategies based on a knowledge of students' physical, social, and intellectual development and characteristics. Why? To improve student learning. Can you hear the change? We've gone from having to demonstrate that we understand how these might affect learning to showing that we can use our knowledge to improve student learning. And it's not just generalistic knowledge either. It's based on a knowledge of your students' physical, social, and intellectual development. Two things have changed. We've moved from demonstrating knowledge to actually using it. And we're not just considering how these may affect learning, but we're demonstrating how what we have done has definitely helped students to improve. So this means that your artifacts that you choose also move from theory, from vague ideas, to actual practice. You're going to need your unit and lesson plans, your assessment to inform your choices, your records perhaps with students, interactions with students, with parents, with other teachers. All of this evidence, all of these artifacts will help you support what you need to demonstrate for this focus area. And of course, as you start talking about your assessment, you're bringing in Standard 5. When you're talking about working with other teachers to understand your students, you're bringing in Standard 7 and so on. So what starts as a focus on Standard 1.1 usually turns into an evidence piece that hits a lot of different focus areas. In Edufolios, the average number of focus areas on one reflection post is actually between 10 and 15. So bear that in mind as you go. Now you might be thinking, Selena, that sounds like a lot of work. I thought the whole point of this podcast was to talk about doing this without stress, and that just sounds a bit stressful. Well, that's because I haven't told you or shared with you my secret. And my secret is you need to be proactive and not reactive. Many of us, when we come to this process of gathering our evidence for proficiency, do so when we've been told we better get on with it. Well, if you get used to reflecting on your practice as regularly as you can, the stress disappears. Think of it this way. Imagine that this is a little bit like a bigger, more fun version of the graduate teacher performance assessment. You've just met your class and you have learned a little bit about them. So let's pause and write a post about where we think we are right now, who we've got in our class in terms of their strengths, and what we're going to be doing to help them grow and fill in any gaps. We're just going to make a snapshot. Because without that control, how can you measure the impact? I'm sure you're all doing assessments right now, loads of standard 5 to tell you and give you a landscape of who is actually in your classroom. You're also going to be building relationships. So that's going to help you with 1.1, understanding developmental characteristics, etc. Make a note of where you are right now. And then talk about how you're planning to meet those needs. This could be in another post or it could be in the same one. In a few weeks' time, when you've started to implement that plan, come back to us and write on your Edufolio or wherever you're gathering your evidence what you've done and whether it's worked. How well has it worked? Reflect on that process and keep doing that. And as you do that, keep in mind these artifacts that you might want to be putting in. What you're actually doing then is just talking about what you're doing. There's no pressure. Just talk about what you're already doing, share photographs, and celebrate all of the successes and all of those moments, just as we talked about last week, where things didn't go wrong, but you learned from that. That is what this proficiency is all about, demonstrating that you are learning how to apply what you've learned at university in your classroom to meet the specific context of your classroom. By doing that in small chunks and just setting aside an hour every couple of weeks to do it, you will soon have all the evidence you need for full registration. And it will be done with far less stress. What is important though, is that you do get used to the language of these focus areas and that you try and use them anywhere you can as you go. Now, in today's freebie, there is a beautiful photograph of a target. And the center of the target is graduate, and then the zone expands to proficient. And it shows you in that photograph how the zones of impact change. Okay, what your influence, where is your influence going to be? With the students, with yourself, and it's going to ask you some questions about that. I'm going to show you those standards 1.1 at graduate and proficient and ask you what differences you can see. I'm also going to ask you which artifacts you think you need to collect. There's a list that you can choose from. And then I'm going to ask you how you might use those artifacts to help demonstrate more than just focus area number 1. You are going to be definitely developing a deeper understanding of how you move from graduate to proficient. So head to edufolios.org/002 right now and grab that freebie. Have a go at some of the tasks and see if you can't produce yourself a really solid piece of evidence right now, today. I look forward to reading all about what you've done. As usual, you can comment on edufolios.org/002 and tell me what you found out. Let me know, give me some questions. And of course, you'll be able to find me on the Facebook group, Edufolios, where I frequently go on Facebook Live, where you are welcome to ask me questions face to face and share your ideas and stories. I really look forward to connecting with you and celebrating when you do receive that email or letter in the post to say that you have successfully demonstrated that you have met proficiency. That's going to be an awesome day. I'll see you again next Wednesday when we'll be talking a little bit more about those focus area descriptors and how you can use them to make sure the language in your portfolio is exactly what your assessor expects. I'll see you then.